All right, all right. And we are live. We are live. I have a special guest here. My good friend here, Hondo S. Carpenter from Sports Illustrated, also the president, CEO of the Carpenter Group. Good to have you on the show today, sir. How you doing?
Hey, Kush, thanks for having me. I'm great to be on with you and get to talk some Raiders today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I have a workout show usually at 9, so I'm glad that you came on early so we could talk about all the good stuff before the morning show because that gives my followers something good to talk about. So if you guys aren't aware of Hondo, I'll give him a second to kind of explain himself at first, just to give him a brief background. For most of the folks to be watching, you all are Raider fans, but for the ones that don't know, Hondo is a report writer for the Raiders. He covers the Raiders for how long now, Hondo?
I'm going in my fourth season. I moved here when the Raiders moved here.
Wow, wow. So how was that transition?
Great. I'd covered the Big Ten for years and years and years, couple of decades. And so it was a great opportunity to come out. I didn't think I would have left covering college sports for any other team than the Raiders. I'm not a Raider fan, but just
Right.
had so much respect for them. And Matt Millen is one of my dear friends. I love him dearly, and so I always had a lot of respect. I got to meet Al Davis, through Matt, so I always had a lot of respect for Al. So for me, it was a no brainer when the opportunity came, and they asked me, "Would you be willing to go to the desert to cover the Raiders?" I'm like, "Yes." So great, and I'm glad to do it.
What was your take on the late Al Davis? What was your first interactions or any great interactions you could share?
I'll tell you a great one, Cush. So I'm good friends with Matt Millen. And
Okay.
so the Lions, Rod Marinelli was the head coach, and the Lions were playing the Raiders in a preseason game. So Rod Marinelli wanted to prepare his team for any circumstance, any curveball. So usually teams fly out before the game, at least the day before. Some teams even fly out a couple days before.
Right.
Instead, he had the Lions fly out the day of the game. Just, hey, let's act as if there was a storm or there was plane issues, and because he wanted to prepare him for any scenario. So
Yeah.
I'm there. Matt's there. Of course, I'm great friends with Matt. And Matt's like, "Come on, I want to introduce you to Al Davis." So he takes me in, and I walk into Al's area, and I walk in, and Matt goes, "Hey, Coach, this is my buddy I told you about." And Al looks at me, looks up, looks down, and he goes, "Raiders." Just like that. And so, we had a lot of small talk, and he asked me, "Are you a Raider fan?" I said, "No." I mean, I said I have a lot of respect for the Raiders, not really a Raider fan, because as a journalist, you can't let yourself. I mean, think about this, Kush. I have friends that play for or work for every NFL team. So
Yeah.
literally every game, I've got people I care about playing, and so you don't really root for a team, you root for the people you love and care about to do well. Now, in my situation, do I want the Raiders to do well? Of course I do. I cover them, and I want the team I cover to do well and go long. But
For sure.
it was great. And then the next time I saw Al, he walked up to me and he goes, "Big boy." And I looked at him and he goes, "Where's Millen?" And I said, "I'm not always with him, coach." And he laughed. He goes, "Never forget, Raiders."
I love it. I love it. That's the type of story that when you see him and like when, with the fans and what we exude, like that's what we want. That's what we like have a dying passion to just bring back. And it seems like I don't know, man. It seems like from an outsider looking in, just as a fan, it seems like we lost a little bit of that when not only when he died, but also when we made that transition to Vegas. You know.
Well, I can let me just say this, Kush, and I appreciate your acknowledgement that you are a fan because you approach things from a different perspective than me. And it doesn't make me as a professional better than you. I want you to please hear that. But you
Yes,
remember
sir.
that scene from Goodwill? No, it wasn't Goodwill Hunting, but it was a Robin Williams movie. I can't remember which one, where he had all of his students stand on the desk
Yeah. Yeah.
and see
Yes.
the
Yeah.
okay. And so we all approach this. One of the things, the problems that I have with professionals in the media like me is they talk down to fans. And I'm going to tell you, that's stupid and it's ignorant. And it's stupid and ignorant from two standpoints. Number one, without the fans, I don't have a job.
Yep.
Those are the people that click on my stories, see me on television, watch my podcast. Those people are precious to me. They're like gold. That's
Right.
why when I get invitations to do podcasts from fans like you, I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do it. I
Hmm.
don't run from the fans. You're not my enemy. I love the fans. I appreciate them. I got so much respect. But number two, just because somebody's a fan doesn't mean that they're not smart. Just because
That's
somebody's
true.
a fan doesn't mean that their opinion is irrelevant. They may have chosen to go to a different path in life. They may have chose to be an accountant. They may have chosen to be a fireman or a baker or whatever. But it
Right.
doesn't mean that their brain checks out and they can only be good in one thing. And so to me, I think there's a disconnect. Now, I'm going to be honest. Although I think it's very prevalent in sports, I think it's very prevalent in every area of our society, whether it's political journalists or economic journalists, where we look down. My job as a media member is not to tell Cush what to think. Cush isn't stupid,
Right.
but Cush looks at me and says, "Hey, give me the information. You're in the building. Give me the information. You're talking to the players. You're talking to the owner, the coaches, the management. Give me the information and let me come up with my own opinion." Now, does that mean I don't give opinion? Of course not. I do it all the time. But I'm also quick to say, "Hey, Kush, this is an opinion." And I think if more journalists got back to doing journalism, that we would be a better society in everywhere, not just sports. I think we'd be better in politics. You
Yes.
know, I laugh because if you look at, let's just use, and I'm not going to get into politics on your podcast, but if you look
No
just at
problem.
politics, okay, there are some people that only watch MSNBC or only
Right.
watch CNN or only watch Fox News. And whatever one you listen to is fine. That's your personal opinion. But I'm nervous that some of the highest and most popular political television stations are all opinion.
Yeah.
I don't need you to tell me what President Biden says. I
Right.
don't need you. I mean, to tell me what you think of what President Biden says. I
Right.
want
I
to watch
got you.
President Biden myself. Don't tell me what you think Donald Trump thinks. Play me what
Tell
Donald
me
Trump
what he
says, and I'll
said.
make
Yeah.
and I just think it's ignorant. And so for me, you ask, how did I get into it? So I have a huge respect for fans. I love the fans. I follow a ton of them on Twitter because I want to hear what they think. And so
Right.
for me, when you talk about we've lost something, I think the Raiders have lost something, but I'm going to give you my perspective from that desk, from that Robin Williams movie, that I think
Right.
is going to be a little different than yours. Fair enough?
Okay. Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
so let me give you an example about Dave Ziegler. Now, I don't make my opinions on emotion. I make my opinions because as a journalist, that's not the way a fan can. Fan is fanatic.
Right.
Dave Ziegler is universally respected. And by the way, I don't make a dime from the Raiders. I don't make one dime.
Right.
So you'll always see
Absolutely.
people who disagree. Oh, he's just a spokesman for the team. Kiss my
Right.
butt.
Right.
They're not a spokesman for the team. And they're not, they're professionals. There are lots of people that rip them and they don't take credit. Oh, you have to say that. You're going to take your credentials. No, I'm not. Just be quiet.
Right.
Here is the thing. Dave Ziegler is universally respected around the National Football League by men who, and not just Patriots, by a lot of men that have Super Bowl rings, men that are proven. And so for me, when those people tell me, "Hey, Dave Ziegler, you can trust him." Okay, I'm going to believe them until Dave Ziegler shows me something different because
Okay.
they're professionals. They're people that are paid millions of dollars in this business, and they're people who have the rings and the success to back up the opinion. Now let's go to Josh McDaniels.
Hmm.
Josh McDaniels, prior to coming here, let's go back to Denver. He was terrible in Denver. He was arrogant. He was, well, we'll just use arrogant. And he was terrible. There's no doubt about that. Okay.
Right.
But I know people who played for Josh, coached with Josh, and have been around with Josh. So he goes and he's going to take the Indianapolis Colts job. But there's some information that he finds out that some people believe
Yeah, I heard
the
about
Colts
that.
weren't forthcoming on.
Yeah.
Okay. So he backs out. Oh, he's a piece of filth. Look what he did to the Colts. Okay. But if it's true that he didn't have all the information and he gets some, I don't blame him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But everybody I know in the league, now we're talking guys who played with him, I mean, for him, coached, all of it. Everyone tells me how he's different, how he's really learned. Now you want to go, I want to go back to before he's hired. And am I taking too long, Kush, or is this okay?
No, no, no. You have all my attention, my friend. Go for it.
Okay. So before he gets hired, he is universally accepted around the league as the number one coaching candidate.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to dismiss owners for a minute because not all owners are connected. Okay.
Right.
And so everybody I'm talking to around the league, I had one general manager that has a coach he really likes that told me, man, I would love Josh McDaniels. I would trade him in it. And this is a very successful general manager.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Mark Davis says, listen, I like Rich Bisaccia. I like what Rich did. But long term, I don't think Rich can get me where I want to go. Now, you may disagree with Mark Davis on that. That's fine. I have no problem with anybody disagreeing.
Right.
But what does he do? He goes out and he makes a bold move. And he goes and gets the guy that everybody else wanted. So, like it or not, you had him going. For example, I remember, and you're going to laugh about this.
Uh,
Matt Millen called Al Davis and said, "Don't take Jamarcus Russell," and Al thought he was juxtaposing so the Lions could
he
take him.
thought he was hating. Yeah.
Now, so I remember this. I remember before the draft, Matt telling me he called Al. Now, so here's my point. Al would go do things and buck the NFL.
Right.
So I believe Al would have hired Rich Bisaccia. I 100% believe that. But anyways, Mark makes this move. Now, I said at the time, and I'm going to be very blunt honest. If the
Mm-hmm.
mail, if the move to Josh McDaniels fails, then it's all on Mark Davis. Now,
Right.
so let's keep going here. So he goes and gets Josh McDaniels. Josh, part of the reason, and I broke this story, part of the reason that Josh wanted to come was Derek Carr. He called and talked to Derek before he took the job. He loved Derek Carr. Now,
Right.
I've done a whole story that you can talk about with your
It's
listeners
it's
about
excellent.
before.
It is excellent. By the way, I got to pause you now with that story. To me, and I'll tell you some of the other things that I've done just to clarify and based off of my own opinions, I thought I was just being outside my own bounds. But great article, man. I mean, you took a lot of flack for it. You took a lot of heat. You took a lot of pats on the back. But at the end of the day, what I saw from just being as independent as I possibly can was a high level of integrity and a high level of courage to be able to put all that together, knowing that the fans may come after you, knowing that some of your coworkers or some of your counterparts may look at it differently, or some of the people in the NFL. But what I saw was just journalism in its highest form of integrity. So I really appreciate you putting that together, because there were so many question marks I know that we all had about the Raiders organization. You
Mhm.
saw it too. There was a big separation between who was in different camps. You had the Derek Carr camps. You had the people that were, Heidi ho, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to be able to be Raider for life. And it's a civil war at that point. So you helped solve a lot of clarity for me, at least. I can't say for everyone, but it helped me a lot.
Well, thank you, Kush. I appreciate that. So, staying along that line, he wanted Derek, and listen, Josh McDaniels had the pick of whatever job he wanted.
Okay.
He picked here. So you
Yeah.
got to give Mark Davis credit, whether you like the move or not. That's fine. This isn't justifying the move. That's up to each fan. I don't tell people what to think. Now,
Right.
but he goes and wins. Josh says, I want Dave Ziegler as my general manager. So they bring him in as a pocket deal. Now, everybody
Hmm.
wanted him. Now, I don't think anyone, including Mark Davis, would disagree with what I'm about to say. 2022 was a disappointment.
Hmm.
Going into that season, they thought, now this is another thing, and I laugh, I don't get mad when fans rip me on Twitter. because Kush, I understand they're emotional, okay? But when I wrote, and I recently did an article about the state of the Raiders, what I'm hearing from around the NFL.
Right.
In the New England Patriots system, every person is so engulfed in their job that one of the biggest reasons that Bill Belichick disciples fails is twofold. Number one, unlike other teams, they don't know what's going on outside of the Patriots. And number two, Bill Belichick only has them doing their job. So when they go to a new job, they don't know how to do the head coaching job. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So having said that, last year was a disappointment, but they did not expect Derek. That's why they gave him the contract they did in the way that they did it, where they had to cut him after X amount of days if they didn't want him. They had no intention of moving on from Derek Carr. None.
Right.
That is unequivocal. I've reported it. You've heard me in press conference talking with Josh. Hey, you called them before you came. You wanted them. Yeah, I did. I did. So
Right.
that didn't work out. Now, a lot of people, and this is, and again, Kush, I don't tell people what to think,
For
but I'm
sure.
going to tell Raider Nation something, and they don't have to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bible's very important in my life, and I'm not on your podcast to preach at you. But one
It's
of
all
my
good.
favorite verses, house divided can't stand.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether that's, I mean, I remember growing up as a kid, and my mom and dad would say, we may fight in this house, but when we walk
Right.
out that door, we're family.
Yeah. We're family. Yep.
Our business
Absolutely.
is our business. So I want to say this to you. The Derek Carr love and hate was toxic on this fan base. It was horrible. It was
Mm-hmm.
brutal. I mean, I had tweets or direct messages or emails that I had to turn over to the state police because they were threats. Now,
Oh.
my residence is kept private. I'm a public figure. I had a person
Holy
that went
cow.
by, took a picture of my home, somehow found out and threatened me. So it's just very unhealthy. And
Wow.
and I like Derek personally. I consider Derek a friend, but I was also a realist. And Derek had a terrible season last year. Now, I know for a fact the Colts offered multiple first rounders for Derek. I know the Patriots and other teams wanted Derek prior to last year. And you can go read my story of why the divorce happened. But last year failed for a lot of reasons. First of all, they did not expect the quarterback play to be what it was. There were a ton of injuries. And so I'm not making an excuse. I'm getting to something, Kush. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to
Oh
manipulate.
no, no, no. You got all the floor,
But
sir. Go for it. I'm listening.
but last year, there was a lot of things that blew up. Just like the previous year under Rich, there were a lot of things that went good. And if
Right.
you're going to say, hey, Rich Bisaccia deserved the job, and there's a strong argument for that, then I also think you got to be, if you're fair, which is my job, I'm not a fan, you got
Mm-hmm.
to give Josh McDaniels, this team was still in almost every game not called New Orleans. They still battled, they still compete. I think you saw a lot. So where am I going with this? Dave Ziegler, I have nothing but high praise for. I like Josh McDaniels. I know him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think he's the same person that he was in Denver.
That was my
Um,
next question.
I
I'm glad you
think
solved that one.
I think if I can tell you as somebody that interacts with him outside of the facility on a personal basis,
Mhm.
he's warm. Josh is a good guy. I get ripped on Twitter when I have players like Max Crosby saying to me, "I've never given up on Josh McDaniels," and then fans will say, "What do you expect him to say, you idiot?" Okay, I agree with that. But if they're telling me that privately, I'm going to come out and say, folks, this is what they really believe. I mean, I'll give you an
Right.
example. My wife and I were out at a restaurant here in Vegas, and there were a couple of the players with their significant others, and
For sure.
so they said, "Hey, you want to join us?" So we joined them, and when I'm out in private with coaches or whatever, I'm in a private setting. What I talk about isn't for me to report. I'm
Mm-hmm.
there as a man. I'm with my wife, but I did say to them, "Hey, uh, I'm not going to use your names, but can I stress to you the fact that you really believe in Josh?" And they're all like, "Yeah, absolutely, no problem." These guys generally, he never lost his locker room. Now, I understand fans who aren't there are so mad. Well, Hondo's speaking for the team. He's just saying
Yeah.
that because he doesn't lose his credentials. Well, first of all, you don't lose your credentials for reporting. But
Right.
number two, I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't put
Exactly.
it out there. I wouldn't put my name on it. My name means a lot to me. I respect my father and my
Hmm.
grandfathers and the men who've come before me. I'm not putting my name on something I know is not true. So,
Absolutely.
anyways, here's what I think about Josh McDaniels. I like him a lot as a person, like him a lot, good man. But I
Hmm.
feel the same way about Dave Ziegler. Um, I think his track record as a head coach, both in Denver and in Las Vegas, is not good. Okay. But I also think if he's a different man than when he was, and year one had some legitimate reasons, not excuses, legitimate reasons. You can't blame him that Darren Waller was injured and didn't come back probably when he should have. A lot of people on the team thought Darren should have come back. That Hunter Renfro was injured. You know, that they were not, they were being careful with the salary cap because they knew they had to cut an Alex Leatherwood. So, again, I understand the frustration of fans. And I understand his track record up to now isn't good. And I also understand he's got to get the Raiders back on track quick or it's going to get any louder. But for me, being an objective watcher, I'm a buyer
Right.
on Dave Ziegler and I still am a buyer on Josh McDaniels, and I have nothing to gain. Now, Josh, this is what I tell everybody. I think this year they're going to be right at 500. I think it's going to be a game either way from 9-8, 8-9. I haven't made my prediction yet. Then I think
Okay.
next year when they get to the winning side, and you've got to expect this team to begin to exponentially go up. But here is the point that I have for you. If he doesn't start winning and doing things within that time period, then I think you have every right to question him. Now, again, when I say I think you have every right, I'm talking about me. Fans
Right.
can do whatever they want. That's their choice. But my job is to only be objective. Now, I'm gonna. Can I share one more incident with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, sometimes as media, and this is not all. I think there's a lot of integrity in sports media. I don't think
Hmm.
everybody has it, but I think there's a lot of it. Sometimes it's easy to get clicks by just turning on people.
Hmm.
And although that makes the writer and their company money, it's not integrity. There have
Right.
been times I've taken opinions that I know costs my company money because people will say, "Well, he's just a hack and he doesn't, he just writes for the team." Okay, that's fine. You can believe that if you want to. I respect that. But it's
Hmm.
not true because
Right.
I believe that and I believe I brought this to the team, the long haul of integrity when you say, "Okay, I may not always like what that reporter says, but man, he's not wrong.
Yep.
He's not lying." So let me give you an example. When I first started covering the team, I talked to multiple people in the organization that told me Derek Carr's not going anywhere. But you had media, oh, Raiders want to trade Carr. Gruden's done with Carr. And I knew
Hmm.
that teams were offering multiple picks and the Raiders weren't moving. So as soon as I got there, he's not going anywhere.
Wow.
Oh, you suck. You suck. You just came to Vegas because you're going to toe the company line. Well,
Yeah.
no, I reported it because he wasn't going anywhere. And so
Right.
when I think it's time for a guy to go, I'll say it and I'll take the lead. I've done it before. And when I don't think it's time, I won't. And so when you ask me, where's this organization at right there? That's where I think they are. Now, go
Mhm.
back and look. Dylan Parham was a steal by Dave Ziegler last year in the third round. Then
Yes, he was.
everyone says, well, they didn't have a first round pick. Well, I don't know what draft you were watching because I saw him get Devontae Adams, and that was a heck of a first round pick. And so I'm looking forward to the draft. I'm going to be at the headquarters all 4 days. I think the Raiders are going to accumulate a ton of talent. And I think the Raiders are just going to get better. Personally, if you're asking me. Now, I don't like the move of adding Jimmy Garoppolo. And I'm going to tell you
Mm.
why, because it's nothing personal. Great guy.
Hmm.
But his track record of being injured is not good. And I don't think when you're the Raiders that you got a 2-year window here to prove it. They put all in, to use Vegas terms. They moved all in to go get an injured Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
And if he stays healthy, it was a brilliant move. And if he stays healthy, I think it was an upgrade. But when you have a guy that's always been injured, you are gambling your future. So again, it's nothing personal with Jimmy. I think he's a great quarterback. He's a great guy. He's great in the locker room. He knows the
Mm-hmm.
system. So if he stays healthy, great move. But if he doesn't, I think it was a mistake. And if I'm Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels, and I know I got a 2-year window, I don't know that I would have made that move. But it's not for personal reasons. But here is
Right.
my
Right.
point. I think these guys know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the toxicity. I was talking to another media member. I won't name them because I didn't ask their permission. I don't think they would care, but I won't.
Right.
We were last Friday. We were at the Raiders, and we were talking about how the fan base is so toxically hates Josh and Dave. And the problem is that toxicity went from Derek to now Josh and Dave. And I'm going to say this, and Kush, I think you would back me up with your listeners. I don't disrespect the fan.
Right.
I'm going to say this to your listeners. That toxicity isn't healthy for your team,
Mm-hmm.
and it isn't healthy for you. If you hate an organization, Mark Davis is not sitting there saying, what do the fans want? If that was the case, he would have hired Rich.
Right.
What he was trying to do is, what do I do to give them what they need, which is a winner? It's all about winning. Just win, baby. Hey, Jimmy Garoppolo was the greatest signing in the world if they win. Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler are the greatest coaches in the world if they just win. It's all about winning. And I think the toxicity comes from, you have an organization that has sold the fans, our motto is just win, when quite frankly, for a long time, it's just be mediocre. And I think that the fans' toxicity, while fair towards an organization, is not fair towards your people. And this is your family. This is your team. You don't have to like the way, but I mean, some of the vitriol, it doesn't help you and it doesn't help your team. And I just think that's an area where people, for their own mental, if I just utterly hated Josh and Dave and Derek, like some of my emails suggest people do, I'd walk away from my team and get a new one. Well, no way. I've been here forever. Okay, well, if you're there forever, my family has been my family my whole life. I love them. We have squabbles or disagreements. We sure do, but we're family. If this is your family, then I think you'd say, okay, I don't like the move to Josh. I don't like the move to Dave. I don't like the move of Jimmy Garoppolo, but it's my family. I'm not going to, because I'm going to tell you this. I know of a free agent that was really turned off to the potential of coming to Vegas just because of the vitriol, and they didn't want to get here and have a coach and GM fired. And some of the fan vitriol, and I know this from prior years of fan vitriol, of people who didn't come because of that. And if you're hurting your team getting free agents, now, I'm not saying you can't be discouraged. I'm not saying you can't have an opinion. I'm talking about the vitriol. That's where people got to police each other.
Right.
I'd love to hear your comments on that, Kush.
I have seen a lot of it, and I do my best to be as neutral as possible because at the end of the day,
I don't think you have
I
to be
grew.
neutral. You just
Well,
can't go to vitriol.
I put it, yeah, I put it this way. I grew up in California, right? I grew up in Richmond, California, where my loved ones sometimes would be the ministers out of the group, and sometimes they were the crackheads, to be honest with you, So at the end of the day, you got to love your family that's in the church just as much as you love. I'm not calling, any of the Raider fans trying to compare that, but I look at it in the same vision where I'm going to love my Raider fans that they're really compassionate. I just look at it as compassion. They're really passionate about the success of the team. They're looking at just the facts of what Josh McDaniels brings to the table. A lot of people, and this is not me speaking, this is just me just absorbing in all of the different energies that I've seen, is that you get a lot of people that look at Josh McDaniels as a coach that has coattailed his way with the Patriots, like you talked about, everyone knowing just one thing, being very, very singular in his job, not learning how to be able to lead men. And I think that's where the biggest disconnect is. And then you also see, just to be, quite frank with you, you also see, I saw a lot from Derek Carr where it just wasn't Raider fans anymore. You had people that represented Derek Carr. And it may have been because he was very, very involved in the church, in his ministry. You had those people that have adapted and become Raider fans because of Derek Carr. And they saw that they felt like he was mistreated. The business side of it, that grew a lot of hatred for Josh McDaniels. So you have people that are not really, I wouldn't say not truly Raider fans. They were more Derek Carr fans, and they saw that how he was mistreated, and that expresses their hatred towards the regime that removed him too. So when I'm talking to these folks, I have to remind myself of that too, because they get very, very passionate and they don't curse, they don't yell, they don't get too out of line about it. So I'm like, okay, something's going on here. The ones that I really want to try and make a big emphasis and a big impact on, of just what I do in my daily life, is the guys that where I saw one that just, this is what got me on social media to start making my own platform, Hondo, was I saw someone with a bag over their head as their profile picture. And they were saying, we can do better. And it just destroyed me as a Raider fan because I'm very prideful. We're known for losing, winning, but either way it goes, we're going to walk away proud, and we're going to walk away as Raiders with our dignity and our integrity about how we dealt the game out. And that's where, you start seeing that. It reminds me of the Cleveland Browns type of fan base and things like that. I just don't like it. I don't. It's something that I don't want to condone, and I just try my best to be as patient with those that fan base as more as of the other ones.
I totally agree with you, Kush. And I want to reiterate, I don't have a problem with anybody having opinion, but when it gets to vitriol, that's not healthy. I'll give you a great example. I'm a lot older than you, Kush. And when I was growing up, it didn't matter if a person was Republican or Democrat. People were able to get along and be friends. And now in our country, you see people, if they're polar opposites on that, I mean, okay, we can't be friends. How stupid is
Exactly.
that? And you know what?
Exactly.
If you didn't think Derek Carr was a good quarterback, you're not a bad person. A lot of people agreed with you. If you thought
Hmm.
Derek Carr was a great quarterback, you're not a bad person. A lot of people agreed with you. But at the end of the day, if you're a Raider and he's the guy on the field, that's your quarterback. Can I
Yep.
give a great example of this?
Absolutely.
When Barack Obama was president, you saw people that said, he's not my president.
Hmm.
Well, listen, if you didn't vote for the guy, guess what, moron? If you're an American citizen, he's your president. People say, Joe Biden's not my president or Donald Trump's not my president. If
Yep.
you're an
He's your
American,
president, man. Yep.
who's ever president is your president. You
Right.
don't have to like him. That's why we have elections.
Yep.
But the point is, it's still your person. And so I don't. I want to reiterate. I don't have one issue with anyone that disagrees with me or
Hmm.
disagrees with a decision. But that vitriol, it's not healthy for people, and it's not good for an organization. I'll
Yeah.
give you a couple. I think Mark Davis has made some mistakes. Okay, so I'm not here as promoting Mark Davis, but I think Mark Davis has done a lot well. He was able to move the team and didn't have to file a lawsuit like his dad did.
Yep.
He was able to get the team a great stadium where now I see people all the time, well, Mark Davis doesn't have money. That is so stupid. It's not even true. Anyone that says that, you should just block them because they are so ignorant. They bring nothing to the table. It's as dumb as
Right.
somebody saying 1 + 1 is 7. Mark
Yeah.
Davis has no cash issues. Okay. But when you look at what Mark Davis has done and doing all of that, he's put this team in position now. They can go sign whoever they want, do whatever they want. They've got the money, they've got the cash, and all of that. That's really good job by Mark Davis. That's
Yeah.
really, and so what does he do? Hey, I don't know everything. So I want to go get some guys. I want to give Gruden a 10-year deal. I want to give
Yep.
a 6-year deal to the guy everybody in the NFL wants because I'm going to trust them to help get me there. I think Mark Davis is a really good owner. I think that he hasn't done everything perfect, but guess what, Kush? I haven't done everything perfect. And so I,
Right.
I think he's done his best. But I want to address one thing.
Okay.
I'll watch fans rip him for the cost of tickets to go to Allegiant Stadium. Now,
Right.
listen to me. The Raiders' ticket prices are very fair, but so many people swooped in and bought them and are now selling them on the
Yeah.
secondary market. Mark
Hmm.
can't control what people do with their tickets once they buy their tickets. If you don't like the prices on the secondary market, I don't blame you.
Right.
But don't get mad at Mark Davis. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
He's pricing them and he's not irreasonable. And so again, when you say that, oh, you're just defending Mark Davis. No, I'm not. I'm trying to be a realist. I live in Realville and I'm
Yeah.
just trying to give people facts. So again, this is why I love conversations with fans like you, like this, Kush.
You know, I'll I'll ask you what's your take on the Darren Waller situation? How did that go down? I know a lot of people before you came on. I got a lot of my buddies. They were like, "What went down with the Darren Waller situation? What do you think?"
Well, there'd been some frustrations for a couple of years with Darren from his teammates that
Hmm.
felt like he was healthy enough to play and would hold himself out. And I'm going to tell you this: it doesn't matter what color you are, what your politics are in an NFL locker
For
room.
sure.
Your brothers are given everything, and if you're not, or they don't think you are, there's animosity. So there was some real frustration there with Darren Waller,
Okay.
and I think it came down. I want to say something. I know Darren, and I like him. I know his parents, and I really like him. I think Darren's a great guy.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I think it was one of those situations that in the locker room that trade had to happen. I wasn't surprised by that. I think it
Hmm.
needed to happen. I think it's a fresh start for Darren. I wish him nothing but the best. But there were on both sides of the ball players that were frustrated that he wasn't playing. And
Okay.
leave it right there because I don't want to give
Yeah.
up too much information.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
I will tell you, just like I said that Josh has not lost the locker room and he hasn't. There was not, there were some, but there was not a lot of players shedding tears, not because nobody disliked Derek,
Hmm.
but you want to know every cotton picking person in that locker room is going to be ready and give their all when they can. I've never seen an NFL player get mad at a guy who's legitimately injured and not playing. But there's a difference between hurt and injured. And in the NFL, you may remember this. Kush, this was made probably before your time. I don't know how old you are, but the Lions
I'm
had a first.
42.
Okay, the Lions, Detroit Lions had a first round draft pick, Ernie Sims,
Hmm.
and he
Hmm.
was a great linebacker. I remember one day in the locker room, I go in to do interviews. Now I knew Ernie really well, super kid, great kid, and he couldn't put his pants on because every NFL football game is like being in a car wreck. So I'm helping him pull his britches up.
Oh my God.
And when you're in that locker room and you know every game's a car wreck and my brother ain't playing, that concerns guys. And so again,
Yeah.
not ripping Darren, who knows if he could have played or not. I'm not his body. I'm not him. But I know there was that perception, and I think it frustrated some people.
Yeah, it seemed like it. It seemed like it from like to the outside looking in. I'm a soldier myself. I'm an army vet, so we
Hey,
know the
thanks for
difference
your
between.
service.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But we have a different mentality when it comes to being sick, hurt, injured, or tired. It doesn't matter when you're doing it for your brothers. That's your job, and sometimes you have to perform when you're not playing at your best. That's what motivation is. If I was just motivated to go out and go do my job when I was motivated, I would never be able to get paid. So sometimes you have to do. Not saying that's the situation with that, but my other concern or my other question right now, I know that everyone's probably going to be asking as well, and I would be remiss not to ask you, what's going on with Josh Jacobs? What do you think of him? What do you think the regime thinks of him, and all the stuff that led at the beginning of last season? It seemed like it was a lot of strange energy out there with him, I would say.
A couple of things. First of all, Josh Jacobs, prior to last year, I would not have done the 5th-year option. Now, I want to explain. Yes, he played well, but he took himself out of a lot of plays, and
Yeah,
and so for a 5th-year option, that was a roll of the dice. And they really liked him, but they went to him and said, "Josh, listen, we want you here. We like you. We believe in you. But come on, hurt or injured, let's go play." And you saw last year on a contract,
yeah,
he didn't want to come
yeah,
out.
yeah. Just keeping it real. Yep. Yep.
That wasn't the case the previous 3 years. So for
Okay.
everybody mad at Josh and Dave for not exercising the 5th-year option, I talked to multiple NFL people who all told me I wouldn't exercise it. Now, he would like a long-term deal. Josh would. That's no secret. I think
Mhm.
the Raiders are willing to give him one, but they're not going to be stupid because A, running backs in this league do not have a long shelf life
Right.
because they take a beating. And number two, once he gets his money, does he play like 22, Josh Jacobs, or does he play like 21, 20, and 9, etc.? So
Right.
that's number one. Number two is, he's obviously, I don't expect him to show up anytime soon. I do expect him to play. Now, I'm not saying that is a definitive, but from what I'm hearing, he will be there game one to play. And
Okay.
so I do expect that. Which, if he's not here, training camp and all that, does anyone remember Emmitt Smith holding out? I mean,
Yeah, right.
Josh Jacobs is going to, because here's the deal: Josh Jacobs knows on the franchise tag, I'm showing off for next year, so I'm
Sure.
not going to come in fat and lazy. First of all, that's not Josh the way Josh operates. He gonna
Right.
come in ready to show something. So I'm going to say this to Raider fans: I wouldn't worry one bit. I believe he'll be there game one, and I believe he's going to be there game one, ready to show some folk who he is. So I
Good.
don't think there's anything to worry about. But at the same time, if you're a Raider fan and not just a Josh Jacobs fan, you have to be able to say, okay, I respect the regime for not willing to go sign a popular player. So let me give you an example.
Mhm.
I said that the Raiders should not have offered Darren Waller the deal that they did. Okay. I believe that because there were concerns. I wrote that. That's all on the record. But they did, and I like them, so I'm happy for them.
Right.
And there were a lot of people, woo, get Waller signed, and they did, and they were all excited.
Yeah.
Well, then he didn't play. So I know there's a lot of people, we got to sign Josh. We got to sign Josh. Okay, so what do you want to give him? A 5-year deal? 4-year deal? Want to give him a
Right.
ton of money? How much guaranteed? Because how much do you want to set the team up for failure with a short shelf life?
Mhm.
Again, I think the Raiders are being smart. I just was talking to several NFL executives and general managers between last night and this morning, and they have one running back that they have with a first round grade, Bijan Robinson of Texas. Okay.
Yeah. He deservedly
Anyone
so.
else, nah, you let them slide because they have a short shelf life, they get injured. You're not dealing with a lot of Earl Campbells, Walter
Mhm.
Paytons,
Mhm. Yeah.
Marcus Allens. Now, obviously, look what happened to Bo. So I think they're being wise, they're being smart, and even if you disagree with them, I think their logic makes sense. And as a fan, you can say I disagree, but I see their side. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it makes total sense. I think everyone is in the same position where we're emotionally attached to him, and everyone's trying to figure out a way to manifest him to get paid and to keep him happy, but no one really has the answer to that, and we all know that too. The other one too is we have the question below from NorCal Raider Jesse. He asked, "Do you think Hunter Renfro is going to get traded?" There's been a lot of speculation about him possibly moving with the D Hop trade, which we broke that down in a couple other shows and talked about the cap situation. That doesn't seem like a real viable opportunity for it. But with the addition of all these extra receivers that we've added this year, a lot of folks are looking at that as something that isn't a possibility. What's your take on that?
Well, you may remember I'm the one that broke the story that there was interest in Hunter Renfro. And I also made it very clear the Raiders want Hunter Renfro. So here is what I'll say with that. I know there's interest in Hunter Renfro. I know that teams would like to trade for him. I also know the Raiders are not interested in moving him. So if
Okay.
he gets moved, somebody's going to have to step up to the pump and pay. Do I think there are scenarios in which Hunter would get traded? Absolutely, I do. Do I think the Raiders are shopping him? I know that they're not, because I have other friends in the NFL that would tell me if they were shopping him. But I do know that I do believe there are some scenarios that he would get traded. But if I had to guess right now, coming down to it, I think he'll be here. But I do know there's interest, and if somebody's willing to pay enough, the Raiders would let anyone go.
Speaking of trades and moving up, from your insight, do you think that the Raiders are looking at a first round or any quarterback? I would think, but just in these top 4 or 5 guys, do we have any legitimate interest, or you think that we may be calling one of those names that 7
I think
pick?
there's one quarterback that the Raiders are interested in the top group. And if he's there, I think they would pick him. I don't see any way that he's there. I'm not going to get into who. I don't want to put the Raiders at a competitive disadvantage by getting that
Hmm.
information out. Um,
Understood.
but having said that,
Absolutely.
I think ideally, the Raiders would love to trade down. Let's get a bunch more picks. We got a bunch of holes. Dave Ziegler is a very respected drafter. I see people point to
Yes.
Britton Brown. Well, what about Britton Brown? I mean, give me a break. We're talking about a seventh rounder. I mean, look at what he did with Dylan Parham. Does he not get respect there? I just think ideally the Raiders want to trade down, but if somebody falls, now I'm going to give you. I don't know how much time we have. Do we have 2 minutes? Can we do 2 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So around the NFL, I've developed based upon the NFL people I know, is
Hmm.
going into every draft, how many guys are dudes? That's the term used in the NFL.
Okay.
These are guys can't miss.
Yeah.
Plug and play, can't miss. Now, the problem is there's always bad teams who consistently draft badly and will take reaches that are not necessary. Traditionally, prior to the arrival of Dave Ziegler, who hasn't had a first round pick technically yet for people to judge, the Raiders have been considered a bad drafting team. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, this may shock a lot of people. The Patriots are considered a bad drafting team.
Wow.
And but Dave Ziegler, I know for a fact, because I've heard this from people around the league, had some pretty heated arguments in New England with guys were making the wrong pick. So that goes into part of my reasoning of why I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Ziegler. Okay.
Hmm.
So I think that I've been told there are two dudes in this draft, Tyree Wilson and Will Anderson. Two guys that you expect pick, plug and play, and go. I think there is one quarterback that a lot of my friends tell me that they have a first round grade on, no one else with a first round grade. But all these quarterbacks are going to be picked because the way the salary cap is now and the way it's structured, it's easy to cut a guy and get rid of him. Look, just ask Trey Lance in San Francisco. They're already looking to trade him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
For real.
so you're going to see some people step up and take guys that are reaches because quarterback's the most important position in the NFL.
Hmm.
So I think there's a chance. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think there's a chance a Will Anderson or a Tyree Wilson could drop. There are two considered number one corners in Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon. And it's funny because some teams have them 1A and 1B, and it's never consistent which one's on top.
Hmm.
So that's fascinating to me. So if you're Raiders, and I think you got to get defensive help, if you're sitting there at 7, man, how do you not take a defensive player? Now let's talk about Jalen Carter. A lot of people believe in the NFL, Jalen Carter is the most talented player in this draft. But I was reporting there were concerns with him even before the off-field stuff.
You were.
And
Yeah.
so Jalen Carter's going to fall not because he's talented. Jalen Carter's going to fall because there are a lot of question marks on him. He's not a dude. I mean, a
Yeah.
dude is a guy that's there. So I think if one of those defensive players is there and they can't find a person willing to trade with them and pay them what they want, then I think you grab a Devin Witherspoon, you grab a Christian Gonzalez, a Tyree Wilson, or a Will Anderson. I don't think all four will be there. In fact, I think one of the four will be there. And so, and let me just say, when I say one of the four, I'm thinking Devin or Christian, not Will or Devin Witherspoon. I think it's going to be Christian will be there, or Devin Witherspoon, not Tyree Wilson or Will Anderson. So if you can't get what you want, you grab a defender. But if you don't mind, I want to give you one name. Can I give you a name?
Absolutely. Yes, please.
I've been asking around the NFL, and there is a guy that everyone is talking about. And when I say everyone, I'm talking about the guys I trust, guys with the hardware, the Super Bowl rings, guys that have the longevity, people that I trust. Okay. Cody Mock of North Dakota State University. I have had him in every mock draft that I've done for the Raiders. I know they really like him, but I know a lot of other teams like him. This is a guy you go pick, you put at guard. He can even slide out and play tackle. But you put him on your offensive line and come back in 10 years and say, oh, by the way, we're retiring your jersey. He is mean. He is nasty. He plays with an edge. Now, there's a saying in the NFL, and if you watched Dave Ziegler's press conference last week, you heard me and him talk about this, paralysis by analysis. And these are where the bad teams overanalyze guys. So now you're seeing some of those bad drafting teams saying, well, he played at North Dakota State University. But I'm just telling you, there's a lot of reasons to be a Cody Mock guy. And if you're a Raider and he ends up on this team, you should be celebrating.
I
Kush,
need
are
to
you
go check
there?
film on that guy. Sounds like for sure. Sorry about that. I have my
All right, buddy.
Wi-Fi
Well,
connected.
thank you
Sorry
for
about that.
having
I
me,
got
man.
you.
This has been fun.
You know what? I have to tell you, Hondo, thank you so much. I know it was impromptu. You got a ton of people. I wish I could show you all the folks in the chat that were showing you love. But you have a ton of the nation in here. This is unprecedented for us on YouTube to be able to have someone of your prestige to come on and just be real with us and just tell us really what's going on. A lot of anxiety was going on in the nation, and I could sense it. I think that this helps calm down a lot of folks that I talk to on a daily basis, a lot of my peers, a lot of my friends. So, again, thank you so much. Blessings to you, brother. If there's anything that I can do to be of help or service to you, always reach out to me. And if you have any questions from the nation, I'm pretty sure I'll help. I'll do my best to answer those for you in any capacity that I can, my friend.
Well, great to be with you. If you want, after the draft, hit me up. Maybe we'll do a post draft if you'd like, but it's been great to be
Yeah,
on with
man.
you. Thanks to all your listeners, and thanks to all you guys that read me and follow me on Twitter and all that. I appreciate it. And let's just do this, Kush. Any of your listeners who
Hmm.
follow me on Twitter, hit me up and say, enjoyed you on Kush, and I'll give you a follow on Twitter.
There you
Just for
go.
today.
There we go. There we go. I will make sure I'll send a couple of them your way and make sure that they're putting in all caps too. So we got a ton of them, man. Thank you so much, Hondo. You have a blessed day, my brother. And yeah, that'll do it for us, guys. Again, Hondo Carpenter, SI or the Carpenter Group. He's out there in Las Vegas doing the good work for the Raiders, guys. Thank you so much again, Hondo. And again, we'll go ahead and shut her down for now. I'm gonna go get my workout now, so I'll talk to the rest of these guys about it. And again, Hondo, thank you so much. Is there a way also on Twitter? We talked about Twitter. Any other way that people can find you, or how you want people to get in contact with you? I know you got podcasts and all these other things going too. Shameless plug,
Yep.
brother.
Well, no problem. We've got all of our stuff on YouTube, which is the Las Vegas Raiders Insiders. We've got on the Fan First Sports Network, my podcast. You can find it there. Twitter, we've got a Facebook page, Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider. Find us there. But Twitter, I love to interact with people. And again, if you go to Twitter, don't tell me I said I would follow you, because then other people will do it. Just go to Twitter and put, hey, Hondo, enjoy John Kush. That's all you got to say. Boom, I hit the follow button.
Yes, sir. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and shut her down. Thank you, Hondo. Until next time, brother. You guys be safe and just win, baby.